I trusted them, both my husband and best friend, but their affair was a devastating secret. I posed as a hotel worker to catch them, and my worst fears were confirmed. My husband and my best friend had an affair. I pretended to be a room attendant to catch them. My life, as I knew it, was unremarkably happy, a sentiment that, though plain, encapsulated all I held dear. I had managed to build a family, one that, against odds and through challenges, felt both complete and complex in its everyday normalcy. My husband, James, a charming and spirited man of 39, stood at the center of my universe. Our journey together hadn't been straightforward or easy. He had come into our marriage with baggage. A son from his previous marriage and a past tangled with unresolved issues that led to his divorce. His ex-wife had struggled with personal demons, leaving James to shield their sores from the fallout. So when James and I married 7 years ago, I welcomed both into my life with open arms, embracing Lucas as my own. Now 9, Lucas had grown into a thoughtful, quiet boy whose moments of laughter were both rare and precious. Lucas lived with us full-time, his presence a constant reminder of the life James had before me, and a life I had willingly stepped into. I treated Lucas with all the affection and care I would my own flesh and blood, and in many ways, he was just that to me. Our bond was strong, despite the initial adjustment and the invisible lines that blended and blurred over time. Then, 3 years after marrying James, we welcomed another boy into our world, Ethan. Ethan, with his father's eyes and an infectious smile, was a living testament to the happiness and love James and I shared. At 5 years old, Ethan was the light of our household, often pulling Lucas into his childish games, which Lucas indulged with a patience that was beyond his years. Our life in a cozy, suburban neighborhood was filled with the typical hustle and bustle of family activities, school events, weekend soccer games, and family dinners that were noisy with chatter and laughter. James, with his job that often put him in the public eye locally, was a well-known figure in our community. This visibility never seemed to affect our quiet home life. Instead, it filled it with a sense of pride. Though we laughed more than we argued, a balance that I had come to cherish deeply. My best friend Claire had been by my side since our college days. She was married to a wealthy businessman who, while providing a life of luxury, failed to meet her deeper needs, especially in their bedroom. Claire often confided in me about her marital frustrations. Her voice a mixture of envy and despair when she compared her emotional and sexual dissatisfaction with the vibrancy she saw in my marriage. She was always there, a fixture in my life, sharing everything with me as I did with her. Despite her personal discontent, Claire's frequent visits and our daily conversations never hinted at anything. She was anti-Claire to my boys, a role she relished despite her own lack of desire for children. Her presence was a comfort, an echo of a past that both of us shared and held on to through our transitioning lives. Our families intertwined not out of necessity but choice. Claire and her husband, often joining us for barbecues and birthday parties, seemed just another branch of our extended family tree. These gatherings, filled with laughter and casual joy, painted a picture of harmony. James had always been a loving and attentive husband. His expressions of affection were frequent and heartfelt, whether it was a surprise bouquet of flowers or a simple note left on the fridge saying how much he loved me. But slowly I began to notice shifts in his behavior that, at the time, seemed insignificant but now scream with meaning. There were the evenings when James would come home from work, his face drawn, not with the usual fatigue of a long day, but with a pensiveness that seemed to cloud his eyes. So when I asked if everything was all right, he would flash me a brief, tight smile and assure me everything was fine, attributing his mood to an especially challenging day. His eyes, once so quick to meet mine, now often diverted away, as if holding my gaze was too much to bear. So then there were the text messages. I remember one night, lying beside him as he typed away on his phone. I glanced over, curious about who he was texting so late. He quickly angled the screen away and said it was just a work email he had to respond to urgently. His expression was too calm, practiced, and it prickled my senses with unease. But I pushed those feelings away, chastising myself for being overly suspicious. With Claire, the changes were even more pronounced, though cloaked in subtleties that only in retrospect reveal their true weight. She had always been open and vibrant, sharing every detail of her life with an almost brutal honesty. But as the months passed, her vivacity dimmed. She became more reserved, her laughter less frequent, and her visits shorter. When she did come over, her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and there was a hesitation in her actions, as if she were constantly on the verge of saying something more, but thought better of it. I remember one particular afternoon when Claire and I had met for lunch. She seemed unusually distracted, her eyes flicking to her phone every few minutes. I had jokingly asked if she had a secret lover she was keeping from me. She had laughed it off, but there was a flash of something in her expression, a flicker of guilt, perhaps, that made me pause. But then she quickly changed the subject, gushing about a new restaurant she wanted us to try, and the moment passed. Our conversations, once filled with earnest depth, had taken on a superficial quality. She asked about my life, my family, but it was as if she was going through the motions. I shared stories of James and the kids, unaware that each word might be a sting to her conscience. Looking back, I can almost pinpoint the exact moments when her discomfort was most palpable, especially when I talked about James with affection and pride. Then one evening, the four of us, James, Claire, her husband, and I, had dinner at our place. I noticed how Claire's laughter seemed forced, how she and James accidentally exchanged looks that they both quickly smothered. It was as if they were both in a play, each performing their part but with a falter here and there that only a discerning eye would catch. After they left that night, the air felt charged, heavy with unspoken words and unasked questions. James was unusually quiet, retreating into a shell that I couldn't seem to penetrate. When I asked if he was okay, he brushed it off, mumbling something about being tired. But his eyes avoided mine, and there was a tension in his jaw that hadn't been there earlier. These signs, these tiny cracks in the facade of our daily lives, were there, forming a pattern I only now fully see. The pain of realizing that not only was my husband unfaithful, but that my best friend was his accomplice, cuts deeper than anything I've ever felt. It shakes the very foundation of what I believed my life to be, leaving me to wonder how I missed the signs when they were so clearly there, painting a picture of betrayal right before my eyes. So the day I discovered the devastating truth about my husband and my best friend Claire started like any other. It was a sunny Tuesday, and I was busy organizing the house while Ethan played in the living room. My phone buzzed with the arrival of a message. Expecting it to be a reminder or a message from a family member, I checked it casually, but what I saw was neither. It was an anonymous text, simply stating a hotel name and room number. The sender was unknown, and my heart sank with a dreadful premonition. Confusion and fear mingled with a sharp sting of betrayal as I read and reread the message. So why would someone send me this? Was it a mistake, or was it something more sinister? Despite every rational part of me screaming to dismiss it, the seed of doubt had been planted. I needed to know the truth. I arranged for my neighbor to watch Ethan, giving some vague excuse about an unexpected errand. My hands shook as I drove to the hotel, the address burning in my eye with every mile that passed. As I parked the car, my breaths were short, each one heavier than the last. I walked to the room, my legs feeling like they could give out at any moment. Standing outside the door, I hesitated. The fear of what I might find on the other side gripped me, but I had to know. I mustered all the courage I had left and knocked softly. "Come in, why are you taking so long? Help me clean up my spilled wine," a familiar voice called from inside. It was Claire's voice, casual and irritated. My heart pounded against my chest as I pushed the door open, feigning the role of a hotel employee. The scene before me was like a still from a nightmare. My husband, James, was out on the balcony, his back to the room, seemingly caught up in a phone call. Claire was sprawled on the bed, a glass of wine tipped over on the bedside table, its contents staining the crisp white sheets. I bent down, pretending to clean up, my hands trembling as I grasped the cloth. Claire continued to talk, unaware of who I really was. "You know, he's the only one who can satisfy me," she said, a moan of contentment lacing her voice as she referred to my husband. "I've always been so jealous of her, living such a perfect life," she added bitterly. I froze, the cloth in my hand forgotten. Her words echoed in the room, each syllable slicing through me like a blade. She spoke of her husband then, deriding him as physically weak and inadequate. The casual cruelty of her words, the ease with which she dismissed her vows, shook me to my core. I stood my disguise as a cleaner forgotten as I faced the reality of their betrayal. So my presence still unnoticed, I watched as James turned from the balcony, his face lighting up as he saw Claire. So the affection in his eyes was unmistakable. And it was not directed at me. Feeling nauseous, I backed away, the room spinning around me. I managed to stumble out before they saw me, my heart breaking with each step. Outside, the cool air hit my face, but it did nothing to ease the heat of my shame, anger, and sorrow. I vomited in the bushes outside the hotel, the physical purging a pathetic echo of the emotional turmoil inside. The drive home was a blur. My mind replayed the scene over and over, each detail a torment. How long had this been going on? How could they do this to me, to us, to our family? The questions spiraled, each one unanswered, each one a further descent into despair. I arrived home to the sound of Ethan laughing as he played. The normalcy of the scene was a stark contrast to the chaos within me. How could I reconcile the world I thought I knew with the deceit I had just witnessed? That night, after Ethan was in bed, I sat alone in the darkness of the living room, waiting for James to come home. So the waiting was excruciating, each minute stretching out endlessly. When he finally arrived, his smile faltered at the sight of me, my red-rimmed eyes and pale face undoubtedly telling more than I could say with words. "Is everything all right?" he asked, a note of concern in his voice that now sounded hollow. How could I begin to confront him? How could I explain the agony his actions had caused? The room felt suffocating as I struggled to find the words. The anonymous message from the morning nagged me. A puzzle piece that didn't fit, its origin still a mystery that I needed to solve. So my mind wouldn't allow me to rest. Not yet. So I slipped out of the bedroom quietly, careful not to disturb James, and made my way to the living room. The house was silent, shadows playing along the walls as the streetlights cast dim glows through the windows. Sitting on the sofa, I pulled out my phone and dialed the anonymous number once more, my heart racing with a mix of dread and determination. The phone rang, cutting through the quiet darkness of the room. It rang longer than I expected, each tone echoing my escalating tension. Then, surprisingly, there was an answer. The voice on the other end was immediately recognizable, though I had never expected to hear it in this context. So it was Claire's husband, Mark. "Why did you send me that message?" I asked, my voice a mix of confusion and anger. There was a pause on the line, a hesitation that spoke volumes before Mark even uttered a word. So when he finally spoke, his voice was low, tinged with a bitterness that I hadn't heard before. "I thought it was time you knew the truth," he said simply. Yet the weight of his words felt heavy and complex. "When did you find out?" I pressed on, needing to understand why he, of all people, would be the one to inform me. I've had my suspicions for a while, Mark confessed, his tone resigned. I confirmed it a few days ago. I saw them together, much like you did today. The revelation stung. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the casualness of their deceit, how it seemed to unravel so easily to those looking closely enough. Why tell me this way? Why not confront Claire or even James? I asked, my voice cracking with the strain of the day's emotions. Mark sighed, a sound of deep weariness traveling through the line. Because Claire has never been honest with me, not really. I knew she married me for my money, but I thought, maybe there was something more eventually. I wanted to hurt her the way she hurt me, by ripping apart the facade she's been living with you, with everyone. His words revealed a pain and a vindictiveness that made me shudder. It was a retaliation meant to wound deeply, indiscriminately. But did you think about how this would affect me, my family? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, my grip tightening around the phone. I did, he admitted, and his voice softened slightly. And I'm sorry for the collateral damage. I didn't want to hurt you or your kids. You deserve better than this, all of you do. I couldn't see any other way to make her feel the consequences of her actions. The conversation drifted into an awkward silence, both of us lost in our own turmoil. Here was a man broken by betrayal, lashing out in his pain, and here was I, a casualty of his revenge. It was too much to take in, too cruel and tangled to fully comprehend in the shadow of my own heartbreak. Is that supposed to make me feel better? I finally said, not expecting an answer, not really wanting one either. No, I guess not, Mark responded, his voice a mix of resignation and sorrow. But maybe, in time, we can both find some peace, knowing the truth. Maybe we can rebuild something from the ruins, even if it's not what we had before. The line went dead then, and I was left with the echoes of our conversation. The night stretched on, endless and heavy. So Mark's motives, though fueled by his own pain, had thrust me unwillingly into the role of avenger in his marital drama, exposing wounds in my life that might never fully heal. So I sat there for a long time, the phone still in my hand, staring into the darkness. The truth was out, a bitter pill that offered no real comfort, only more questions and the daunting task of navigating what was left of my marriage and my friendship. As dawn began to break, the first light casting a pale glow into the room, I knew that the path ahead was uncertain. Forgiveness seemed as distant as the fading stars, and trust, once broken, loomed as a colossal challenge to rebuild. But in that moment of early morning clarity, I realized that whatever decisions lay ahead, they would start with facing the day and the consequences head on. I woke up from an uneasy slumber, a night marred by turmoil and haunted by the echoes of betrayal. The weight of discovery sat heavy on my chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. Despite the unrest, I had made a decision the previous night. I needed to talk to James, face to face, to resolve this excruciating mess we found ourselves in. I wanted answers, needed closure, or at least the beginning of a conversation about where we stood. So my plan was to meet him tonight, after the kids were asleep, a time we could talk undisturbed. With this resolve, I reached for my phone to text him, a simple message to confirm our talk. But as the screen lit up, I was met not with the quiet icons of my home screen, but with notifications flooding in. A storm of alerts and messages that immediately set my nerves on edge. Curiosity mixed with dread, I opened the social media app to find the source of the commotion. There, on my feed, was something so shockingly personal and devastating that it knocked the wind out of me. A video, unmistakably featuring James and Claire, in a very compromising, intimate scene. It was posted by an anonymous account, but the content was explicit, leaving no room for doubt about what it depicted, or who was involved. The reality that our private agony was now public spectacle was paralyzing. I knew immediately it was Mark's doing. His previous actions, the pain in his voice last night, painted a clear picture of a man driven to the edge by heartbreak and betrayal. His method of exposing the affair, so raw and cruel, was the act of someone consumed by revenge, not just intent on reclaiming his dignity, but on destroying everything in his path. As I stared at the screen, numb and disbelieving, my phone began to ring, jolting me from the shock. It was relentless, buzzing again and again, vibrating with an urgency that mirrored the chaos now exploding around me. Journalists, friends, acquaintances, news of this scandal was spreading like wildfire, and everyone wanted a piece of the drama, a comment, a reaction. Oh my God, I murmured to the empty room. Everything was falling apart, unraveling faster than I could have ever anticipated. So the conversation I had planned with James, meant to be a private affair to mend or end what was left of our marriage, was now irrelevant. The world had intruded, cruel and uninvited, into our lives. My heart raced as I tried to process the rapid collapse of my privacy and personal life. This video, this vile breach of our intimate moments, changed everything. There was no room now for quiet discussions or contemplative reconciliations. The issue demanded immediate attention, not just as a personal betrayal, but as a public spectacle that was spiraling out of control. With shaking hands, I dialed James's number. He answered quickly, his voice tense, aware already of the digital wildfire consuming our lives. Have you seen it? Was all I could ask, my voice a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. Yes, I've seen it, he replied, his voice heavy with regret and something else. Fear, perhaps. I'm so sorry, this isn't how I wanted. How you wanted what, James? For me to find out. For everything to end, I cut him off, unable to contain the torrent of emotions. It's everywhere. Our friends, family, everyone has seen it. How do we even begin to handle this? There was a pause, heavy and laden with the weight of our crumbling world. I'm coming home. We need to talk, face to face. We need to figure out what to do about everything. The call ended, leaving me in a turmoil of thoughts and emotions. I knew that whatever came next would be incredibly challenging. Facing the public humiliation, dealing with the betrayal, and navigating the fallout with our children and our families, there was no easy path forward. The hours until James's return were agonizing. I sat, enveloped in a haze of anxiety and betrayal, trying to brace myself for the confrontation to come. How do you confront a betrayal that's become a public circus? How do you reclaim any sense of normalcy when your private life has been laid bare for all to see? So when James finally walked through the door that evening, the look on his face told me he was as devastated by the stare as I was by the betrayal. We sat across from each other, the weight of unspoken words heavy between us. This wasn't just about us anymore, it was about our children, our families, and the indelible marks this scandal would leave on all our lives. The conversation that followed was painful but necessary. We discussed immediate steps to protect our privacy, ways to handle the media, and most importantly, how to address this with our children. We talked about the potential for legal action against Mark for the invasion of privacy and the dissemination of the video. Through it all, the need for decisions about the future of our marriage loomed large. But those decisions were for another day. Right now, we needed to manage the crisis at hand, to protect our family from further fallout, and to begin the arduous process of healing, whatever that might look like. After James had come home and we'd begun to tentatively address the fallout from the scandal that was now openly unfolding, I knew there was one more call I needed to make. Despite the raw emotions and the deep sense of betrayal, I needed to contact Mark. The urgency to protect what little remained of our family's privacy propelled me into action. I found a quiet corner in the chaos of our home, my hands trembling as I dialed Mark's number. The phone rang, each tone echoing in the emptiness of the room, magnifying my anxiety. When he finally answered, his voice was cold, distant. "Mark, please," I started, my voice pleading, "you have to take down the video. I think about my sons, think about what this will do to them if they see it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear him weighing his options, his breath a soft but audible intake. I posted that video for a reason. Mark's voice was resolute, tinged with the bitterness that had likely driven him to expose the affair so publicly. "I understand your hurt," I continued, fighting to keep my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. But my children have nothing to do with this. They are innocent. Please, don't let them suffer because of our mistakes." Mark's reply was a sigh, long and weary. "You think I want to hurt children?" he asked, his tone softening slightly. "You think I haven't thought about that? I know you're angry, and you have every right to be," I said, trying to connect with the part of him that had once been our friend before all this bitterness took hold. "But please, reconsider what this will do to them. They could lose friends, be bullied. Their whole world could change, and once something is on the it's there forever." There was another silence, longer this time. I held my breath, waiting, hoping that my words had reached him, had reminded him of the man who used to come to our home, who had laughed and dined with us, who wasn't this person consumed by revenge. Finally, he spoke again, his voice less certain than before. "I don't want to hurt your kids, I don't," he admitted, and Mighty's words seemed to carry a weight of realization, as if seeing the broader impact of his actions for the first time. "But Claire and James, they did this, not me. They did, and they are dealing with it," I assured him, my voice firm. "So that our children shouldn't have to. Please, Mark, do this for them. Take the video down." We talked a little more. I told him about Ethan's recent school achievements, how he was just starting to really enjoy his soccer games. I mentioned Lucas's quiet strength, how he had been dealing with so much already between the complexities of his blended family life and normal childhood challenges. So with each word, I hoped to humanize the situation, to bring it back from the abstract online world to the very real, very affected lives of these two little boys. Then Mark finally conceded, his voice a mixture of defeat and clarity. "Okay," he said, "I'll take it down, not for James or Claire, but for the kids." I thanked him, relief flooding through me, though tempered by the knowledge of the lingering effects of his initial decision. We ended the call on a note of strained civility, the connection forever altered, but with a sliver of respect for his final choice to protect my children. After hanging up, the relief was palpable, but so was the gravity of what still lay ahead. The video might be taken down, but the damage was done. Rumors had been ignited, conversations started, and the digital footprint, though now less traceable, would never be completely erased. The task of facing our friends, family, and especially our children with the truth loomed large. How to explain such adult failures to such young minds was a puzzle I was still piecing together. The forthcoming days would require careful navigation, as James and I would need to shield our sons from as much fallout as possible, while also preparing to answer their questions with honesty appropriate for their age. In the wake of the scandal that crumbled the facade of my once seemingly perfect life, the days that followed were some of the most challenging I had ever faced. The very foundation of my existence, my marriage, had been irrevocably altered by betrayal, and the aftermath was a painful navigation through a landscape I hardly recognized. The morning after I successfully persuaded Mark to take down the incriminating video, James approached me with a solemnity that was uncharacteristic of the man I had known. He held a set of divorce papers in his hands, his eyes avoiding mine as he placed them gently on the kitchen table where we had shared countless family meals and lighthearted conversations. "I think it's best if we do this," he said quietly, his voice strained. "I don't deserve your forgiveness or your feelings anymore." The finality in his voice cut through the air, sharper than any words he had uttered the night before. I looked at the papers, a cold, hard reality settling over me. Despite the tumult of emotions, a part of me had clung to the hope of reconciliation, not just for our sake, but for our sons. But in that moment, as I watched James, defeated and resigned, I understood that our path forward needed to be apart. With a heavy heart, I signed the papers, each stroke of my name a silent testament to the years we had shared and the future we would not. I didn't contest much, I just asked for primary custody of our sons, ensuring they would have stability and continuity in their lives as much as possible. James agreed without hesitation, the guilt etching deeper lines into his face. Once everything was settled legally, I took our youngest son, Ethan, and moved to a nearby apartment. It was a modest place, but filled with potential for a new beginning, a space just for us, away from the shadows of past betrayals. And meanwhile, Claire's life unraveled in ways more dramatic and public than I could have imagined. After her affair with James and the subsequent fallout, Mark, driven by a blend of betrayal and vindication, ensured that Claire would not benefit from their divorce. Armed with evidence of her adultery, he barred her from claiming any significant part of his considerable wealth. Last I heard, she was sent away empty-handed, a fitting end to her duplicitous maneuvers. But Claire's descent didn't stop there. Recently, the news broke that she had been arrested for corporate corruption, so it seemed her unethical behaviors were not limited to her personal life but had permeated her professional dealings as well. While part of me felt vindicated that Claire was facing justice, another part of me was saddened by the sheer waste of her potential and the destruction of the person I once considered a close friend. As for my life, it has taken a turn toward rebuilding and refocusing on the future. The divorce, though painful, allowed me to start anew, focusing solely on raising Ethan and ensuring that Lucas, though he lived with James, remained a central part of our lives. The challenge, however, has been dealing with the emotional and psychological impact on Ethan. So the absence of his father in our daily life has been a significant adjustment for him. James tries to be present, coming by to visit and taking Ethan out on weekends. But the once seamless nature of our family life is now a patchwork of scheduled visits and shared custody. Ethan, only 5 years old, struggles with this new reality. He often asks when Daddy is coming home, and on days when he realizes that the home he knew is no more, his confusion turns into quiet sorrow. Seeing my son grapple with these feelings has been heart-wrenching. Despite the anger and betrayal I felt towards James, I've encouraged a healthy relationship between him and Ethan, believing that whatever issues we had as spouses should not taint their father-son bond. So we both agreed to attend family therapy to help Ethan adjust to the changes, and while it has been helpful, the road is undoubtedly long and filled with uncertainties. In this new chapter of our lives, I've had to be both mother and father in many ways, trying to fill the gaps left by James's absence. I've also had to navigate my own healing process, dealing with the lingering feelings of betrayal and the task of forgiving enough to move forward, if not for myself, then for the sake of Ethan. As I focus on rebuilding our lives, my resolve strengthens. I have found solace in returning to work and strengthening bonds with family and friends who have shown unwavering support through these tumultuous times. The community around us has been a steady source of comfort and stability, and I'm grateful for every gesture of kindness and understanding they have extended towards us. Despite the scars left by the events of the past months, I am hopeful. Life, though unpredictable and often painful, also brings opportunities for growth and new beginnings. For Ethan, for Lucas, and for myself, I am committed to building a future defined not by the failures and betrayals of the past, but by the possibilities of what is yet to come. As we move forward, one day at a time, I hold on to the hope that with love, resilience, and a bit of courage, we can find peace and happiness again.
I dedicated years to making sure everyone felt celebrated, but when I was my turn, I was left out and forgotten by my wife and friends. My best friends and wife forgot my big moment, and now I'm struggling to cope with the betrayal. Pretext: I completely understand there are much greater tragedies out there than what I'm about to describe. Need to write this out and appreciate any feedback or strategies. Myself, my wife, and friends from college, including best friend and his wife, have been doing a college football pick'em league for the last 12 years. It's for fun, but I'd say most everyone takes it somewhat seriously. Since we've had the league, different people won, but for 6 years in a row, one particular guy kept winning. Each year, we have a big tailgate party at a game, where the winner of the previous year is honored with a speech and trophy. Last year, we even arranged for a surprise cameo to be played at the tailgate for the guy who won his 6th in a row. I broke his streak last year and won the league, but I was also the person who typically got the trophy and arranged the cameo or some of the other cool things we've done. So yesterday was our big tailgate, and it was my chance at being recognized as the person who won the previous year. A few hours in, my wife had a few drinks and said, "I don't even know what we're doing this year for, person who won 6 years in a row." And then I said that actually I had won, and her whole face changed. Our friend standing next to her turned white as a ghost. First they laughed, then said, "No, wait, it was you." I realized that until that moment hadn't occurred to them, or anyone, to do anything. There was no trophy, speech, anything. My best friend quickly gets told by my wife that they forgot to do something and says nothing. Can't make eye contact. It's worse for me. After it sets in, I'm in the bathroom an hour later. I walk out, and some people start clapping, because my wife had awkwardly arranged for the crowd at the party to do something. I'm just sad. I don't really want to talk to my wife. She gave me a very short apology this morning and offered sex to cheer me up. Made it worse. Drove 6 hours home crying here, and they're wondering how a group of people I love and care about would drop the ball. Sent a text out to some saying how shitty it was to be forgotten. Sucks. I'm sure tomorrow I'll be less sad. Relevant comments. Comment 1. You're the planner, you're the one that keeps people together and makes sure no one or thing is forgotten. So when you don't do all the work, no one else does. It's really crappy they forgot to celebrate your win. You deserved a hurrah and they let you down. Really sorry OP. Congrats. Comment 2. They did drop the ball and then handled it really inappropriately. Sincere apologies were needed ASAP and then making it up to you. I'd truly join another league just to take your mind off it and detach a little from that scene. Even if they don't do celebrations, you're the planner of the group that still isn't cool. I hate football, but this got me worked up. Comment 3. Everyone likes to accept rewards and praise, but not everyone likes to return the favor. OP went out of their way to make sure whoever won had a good time and felt special for 6 years and got nothing in return when it was his time to shine. And to top it off, his wife is trying to downplay it and act like he's overreacting. Feels bad. Least they could do is apologize, especially the MF who laughed. OP is the one who made his win special in the first place. Comment 4. Next time your wife is upset, offer her sex to cheer her up. Comment 5. This isn't stupid at all. You're validated in feeling how you do, and it's shitty as fuck that your friends and wife didn't recognize how important this was to you. I totally get it. It isn't about fantasy football. It's the pretense of the entire situation. Honestly, if it were me, I would tell my friends via phone call or face-to-face, not text, and tell them how it made you feel unappreciated as a member of the friend group, as well as how it hurt how they reacted after realizing you were the winner. And not because it was over a game of fantasy football, but because this is clearly something you all put effort and emphasis into for multiple years, and there's no excuse for just brushing you off. I would also tell your wife how it made you feel with offering sex. Sex isn't something to be rewarded or withheld, and that set off smoke alarm bells for me personally. You deserve to be surrounded by people who appreciate you the same way you do for them. This isn't something to accept. It's important that you say something. I know it's uncomfy, but it's worth it. Sending you love, OP. Thank you very much, really. I teared up that anyone felt sympathetic. I'm in my house and feel like I'm on an island by myself. Update, it's tomorrow, after a night where I slept in the guest bedroom. Late last night, I got an email apology from the girl who turned white when she found out. My wife woke up at 6 to get ready for work, and I was up helping kids get ready for school. She wanted to talk and asked if I could talk also. I was half awake and didn't have any thoughts put together. The first thing she says is that I need to keep perspective. She said that it's not as if she cheated on me. She forgot something big, but there are much worse things that could have happened. I didn't respond. She asked how long she was going to be punished for this, and I just responded by saying it wasn't all about her. She is visibly frustrated, and I'm too afraid to say something that will ignite her. I feel like she's desperate for me to say anything. I realize she's not comforting me, or trying to understand. She wants full resolution before we have to take kids trick or treating tonight. That's it for now. She texted good morning, and I haven't responded. Relevant comments. Comment 1. When the planner doesn't plan, shit doesn't get done. I am sorry that your lame-ass friends didn't treat you well by remembering to celebrate your win. I'm even more sorry that none of them had the guts to come clean and apologize in front of the group for being such a shitty friend. And finally, to the guy that laughed, and who no one shut down when he was, please accept my 2-finger salute over the internet. Now that I've established that I'm firmly on your side, I ask you, what do you want to have happen now? Think long and hard about what it is that you want. Yes, this whole fantasy football thing is shitty, but what sort of friends are these guys outside of this situation? Would you call them if you needed help moving, and would they come? If you suffered a real tragedy, would any of them be another shoulder to cry on? If you have kids, or were to have kids in the future, would you invite these people to be a part of your child's life? If these people are merely the college fantasy football bros, then maybe you need to consider letting them all go. You've devoted considerable time and effort, and maybe money, into making these events fun for them, but when the time came for them to return the favor, they didn't care enough to get the job done. I don't blame them for not being more sincere in their apologies on the day this all went down. By your account, they were all caught flat-footed, and it's hard for most of us to admit our mistakes and apologize properly when we're still processing what an asshole we've been. Have any of them reached out since? Only you can decide how much these people mean to you and whether you want them in your life going forward. If I were you, I would write a huge screed about everything I'd done for the group over the past years, trying to make this event a yearly spectacle. I wouldn't cuss or throw around insults, but I would make it very clear to everyone that this event is so much fun every year because of my hard work. Then I'd end it with how disappointed I was that none of them saw fit to return the favor when I was the winner. I would absolutely point out that the previous winner laughed and was a complete jerk, and that it was shitty of them not to shut that noise down, but I'm petty like that. Maybe you're not that petty. I'd fire this off into the group chat, or whatever you guys used to communicate, and see what happens. Maybe you'll get a ton of heartfelt apologies, and they'll plan an extravaganza in your honor, and all will be well. Or maybe you'll get back a bunch of hate, and you'll see their true colors. Either way, you'll have your answer as to what sort of friends they really are. Once you've sorted the friend situation, you'll need to sort things with your wife. I have a lot of questions for her, and I imagine you do too. Why didn't she organize something to celebrate your win? For starters, the wife might be something that requires marriage counseling, but only you two can determine that at. EP, I don't know. I don't want anything. As of this morning, I'm just wanting to not have this tension with my wife. But I'm kinda stuck on feeling let down, and she's supposed to be the person that doesn't do that. Comment 2. Is your wife always as shitty as she seems here? OP, no, she's great and a wonderful partner. But one major part of her personality is that she hates any feeling of having done something wrong. It's like she becomes a different person. Comment 3. So, bad sex and a weak apology is how she makes up for it. Comment 4. And then getting upset at OP for feeling hurt and making it about herself. Now to the next story, story 2. I'm leaving my boyfriend after 2 years together because of his prenup demands. Why I chose to walk away from a relationship that felt one-sided. I'm 34F, breaking up with my boyfriend 34M because of a prenup. I've been with my boyfriend for about 2 years. Everything is going well and we love each other. We've been discussing marriage and he mentioned he would not marry me without a prenup. We discussed this in detail and I did not like what he proposed. His family owns a lot of property, land, and has lots of savings. After marriage, he wants me to move into one of the houses his parents own. I told him I'm uncomfortable building a life and a family in a house I have no ownership in, and he didn't understand. I told him I'd prefer to rent a place together, or we can live temporarily in one of his parents' houses and look at property together, but he refused. He said he liked the houses his parents and he already owned. He said he would not buy other property. He said he would not sell any of his property to buy one with me. He told me if I wanted to own property, I could save up money by living in one of these properties and invest in one myself. Problem is, he would be entitled to half if we divorced since my purchase would happen after marriage. He told me I could pay his parents' rent if I feel like I don't belong on the property. He told me I could buy half of the house we live in from his parents. Problem is, I don't like the houses that him or his parents own. They also have a lot of stuff and I feel like there's no space for me. I want to look at houses. I want to pick the place I live in, and I want to do it with my partner. I've made this clear to him over and over, but he won't budge. He earns more than me, and he has more assets than me for sure. He made it clear he was afraid I was a gold digger, and he wanted to protect himself and his family's assets from me, which I can understand. This whole thing has made me feel very weird. This topic has come up before, and it has always made me feel very small. It makes me feel like all he cares about are his assets. It makes me feel like he wants me as long as I fit into the life he already built, and doesn't care to build one with me. It makes me feel like a gold digger. He has enough money to retire right now and live comfortably. I don't. He basically told me that whatever money he earns now, he can spend so he won't be investing in too much anymore. He expects our earnings and our savings after marriage to be split, which I feel off about. I'm sure this is normal for some people. I'm sure other people would be happy to be with someone who is well off. I am not. I want someone beside me building a life with me, not someone who has built a life with his parents and wants me as long as I behave and fits into his life, which is how he's been making me feel. So I'm leaving him. I welcome opinions on this. But yeah, it's been too long that this has made me feel off about our relationship. I'm protecting my peace and leaving him with all his houses and money. Told her, BF and I are talking about marriage. Boyfriend and his family are well off. He wants me to live in a house I don't own and doesn't want to look at houses with me. I wants half of post-prenup assets. So I'm leaving. Relevant comments. OP adds context to the prenup talk during their relationship. No. He mentioned prenups very early, and I would keep asking him about the details, but he would keep it very vague and assure me we would work it out when the time came. I never asked him about his assets, and I never actually knew how much assets his family had. The only things I knew were from some of his one-off comments about certain assets. If he mentioned this tenant, or that tenant, or this thing they have to repair, etc., I had also initiated these conversations. He mentioned wanting to live with me and work towards marriage. I figured then that time had come. This is when I sat him down and asked him what he expected from me, what he wanted, and to clarify the conditions of any prenups he wanted to propose. He still tried to dodge my inquiry. It took so long for me to pull this information out of him. I guess I did wait 2 years, but marriage talk seemed like the right time to push him to discuss it. Update, so many things have happened. This is a bit of a rant, and I know I'm missing parts, but I'll try to cover the important bits. Before I start, here's some important context. I have a stable and rewarding career, and though I don't earn as much as him, I am very happy with what I can afford. My parents have always taught me that women should be independent, and I've taken that to heart. I live below my means, which has allowed me to put money aside for savings and investments. A lot of comments have mentioned that I should take the free rent and that it would somehow set me forward in life, but for me, giving up my sense of autonomy and control over my home, my safe space, is not worth the potential savings. I lived with my parents and saved aggressively until I was 30, so I am lucky enough to be in a position where I can comfortably afford rent or a mortgage by myself. Plus, he expected the living situation to be permanent. I would not move into a house owned by someone else just to save on rent. Would it be nice to save $2,000 a month? Sure, but most people pay rent, and I am not an exception. If I really wanted that, I could move back in with my parents. But again, autonomy is very important to me. Also, if he's this stubborn now, I don't see how this situation could be improved later after I already moved in. I could also counter the prenup and make it so all my accumulated assets stay mine, or put in a clause that I'll be compensated for any children we have, or put that I'd get alimony, or at least have a roof over my head in case we divorce. But for me, that feels overly transactional. It also gives me the vibes that I'm going to be living with a roommate who I sleep with and might have babies with, not a partner. I prefer to feel like we're in it together. He can keep what was his, but I want to build up what is ours. Also, if everything is completely split, it'll open up a new can of worms. How will our expenses be split if I'm working and he's just chilling? What happens when we have children? He has money saved for them, but will I get a say in how we spend that money? I know these can be worked out, but this is not the type of marriage I want. I can't predict everything that will happen, and I don't think I can capture it in a contract. And it's already been so heartbreaking for me. I don't want to go through more. Anyways, yada yada yada. I'll just say that it felt like I was being stripped of my autonomy, stonewalled, and treated like a hostile. Okay, on to updates. So I told him I needed to end this relationship. I appreciated and truly enjoyed my time with him, but our financial values and the preferred married lifestyle just don't match. It was a quick and easy conversation fee. I expected the breakup to be a bit of a process, not a one-and-done thing, since our lives overlap a lot. I'm also in contact with a lot of his family, so during this whole time, a lot of them got involved, but blah blah. Not super relevant to updates. Talk with his parents. Okay, I love his parents. I had a great relationship with them. I would go over to their house, we would have food, chat, watch TV. Sometimes I would go to the parties they host without my ex if he was busy. A few days after my talk with my ex, I went over to say goodbye. I didn't know if the prenup was family enforced or not, so I kept it very general and mainly focused on how the situation made me feel and what I was looking for in a relationship. His parents were shocked when I told them why I was leaving. I'm going to bullet point the rest. His parents really want grandbabies. However, my ex's younger brother and Sil do not want kids. They were so happy when I came into their lives and she found out I wanted kids. His parents had created their wealth together, with his dad being the major breadwinner for most of the relationship. His mom was shocked at what he was offering me, saying these aren't the values he was raised with. She had been effectively retired since almost 15 years ago, and she said ex's dad never made her feel uncomfortable because of the difference in earning potential. They told me that they built their assets for themselves and their children. They said that includes whoever their children decided to share their lives with. They have many properties. However, they also have enough investments that they can live off of those. They told me their plan was to sign over a house of our choosing as a wedding gift, or sell a house and give us cash so we could buy a house we both wanted. As they got older, they planned to evenly divide their properties between my ex and his brother, since they wouldn't want to manage the properties anymore and live off investments. Ex's mom said she would have made sure my name was on my ex's portion, especially since we were wanting kids. They mentioned investments will go directly into funds for grandkids after their passing. Maybe this is what my ex was referring to when he said his children would be set. Bit morbid though. Ex's mom told me that the mother of her grandbabies would be taken care of, and she wanted us to be on equal footing while raising a family. TBH, this conversation was kind of like a weight off my chest. I always loved his family and never felt excluded, but the prenup talks left me confused and hurt. What they said fit with what I knew from my ex and them before. I'd be lying if I said I didn't start imagining this life I talked to my ex again. I'll bullet point this too. Basically, he told me his dad had joked before about how he hoped him and his brother would not find gold diggers. And that's where that comment came from. He felt responsibility to protect his parents' assets, since he didn't feel entitled to them. So by extension, I wasn't entitled either. In his culture, sons carry on the family line, so he felt he had to keep his assets in the family line, which I'm not part of, but any sons we had would be. Most of the assets he's worried about are under his parents' name, and he had never asked for their opinion on what to do. He just did what he thought he should be. He also said he isn't that well off, and that his assets shouldn't come between us. This is still confusing to me. Isn't this whole thing because he was well off and wanted to hold on to what he had and not create a shared lifestyle? I think maybe he meant he didn't own much, and most things actually were under his parents' name. He felt he was punching above his weight with me, and was scared I would leave him. He was afraid I was with him because of his finances, since that was the only thing he had more of, whereas he said I am intelligent, hardworking, beautiful, blah blah. He was scared about moving forward with the relationship, but instead of communicating, he became defensive. To me, it seems like he said and did things because he was feeling deeply insecure. He had made a couple passing comments before about me being more beautiful than him, or how I'm more hardworking etc., but I had always taken them as compliments, not self-deprecating comments towards himself. He's such a caring, funny, and intelligent person, just in a different way than me. Also, I know he's not as confident as he comes across, but I had no idea that his insecurities ran this deep. He also apologized over and over about how he didn't mean to make me feel like an outsider to him and his parents, and insisted that he wanted to share a life with me. So he said his insecurities and fear got the best of him, and he didn't handle it well. He had taken advantage of my patience and lashed out because he felt inadequate and scared. It broke my heart because I think all this could have been avoided. We've been through this song and dance before many times where he would feel some sort of way, then act out as he's processing it. Until now, I always stay through it and we move on. But it's never gone on for so long. But I guess the issues we faced before were smaller compared to mapping out our whole lives. I've pushed him to seek individual counseling, and we've attended couples counseling together, but I can't force him to sit and identify his emotions or employ the tools we were taught. The prenup conversation happened over a long period of time. He had so many chances to pump the brakes and reflect on what he was saying, and simply just listen to me, but he didn't. He then sat in front of me saying that everything he said before was not what he meant. He said he would be happy to take care of me and our future kids. We could buy a house together, or rent if I wanted to. Because now he wasn't scared about creating a life together, completely opposite to everything he had been saying. But how unsettling is it that he seems so completely comfortable and confident in the hurtful words he previously said, and was okay with placing me in a very unequal position in the relationship, despite me continuously trying to articulate what I wanted and how he was making me feel. He didn't even consider my side. Over months, I know I have a good deal with what his parents are offering, and I know him and I get along super well, but I'm not marrying his parents. I can't have his mom with us during every argument or life decision we take. Thinking back, I can count on one hand where we've run into issues, and he was able to address it without acting up. He's such a nice guy, but I can't be his garbage bin every time he needs to sort out his feelings. It's already worn me down. He's a grown man, he's intelligent and intuitive. He's had 2 years to learn how to communicate with me, and he's not. I honestly can't tell if what he said to me is genuine, or coming from his parents, or coming from a fear of losing me. I could give him the benefit of the doubt again, and move forward with the relationship as I've done in the past. But I'm tired. I think this is a fixable problem, but I also have not seen any improvement since we started dating. If anything, this prolonged experience has made me feel it's gotten worse. I will not make the mistake of investing in a man because of what he could be, instead of who he is. If the last few months are a testament to how he handles stressful situations, I can only take things as they are and assume they won't change. This whole thing has left me sour. I don't need too much, but I do expect to be treated with love and support, even during times of disagreement. I cannot just forget the feelings and words I've felt and heard over the last couple of months. I can't just unhear and unknow that he is afraid I'm a gold digger. That was just one of many comments that really hurt me. I think life will have a lot more ups and downs, and I cannot imagine what kind of difficulties we will face if this is how we communicate, even after identifying it and working on it in therapy. For these reasons, I'm still choosing to walk away. Very diff from leaving because of a prenup, but it is leaving nonetheless. And this hurts more. I know it will hurt for a while, but I pray I'll be avoiding heartache and complications in the future. Who knows? If it was meant to be, maybe we'll find our way back. For now, I've told him and his family I need space and time. I know that it seems like I'm giving up a lot, but there are things I can't put in a post. I actually wrote the above quite early, but I didn't post because it didn't feel like it was over. But now after this time, I know it is. It's been tough, and it's only been a couple months, but I'm sure I made the call. It's tough watching everyone coupled up and having children, but it is what it is. I'm proud of myself for leaving and I'm slowly healing.